Starseed Showdown. Experience the unknown.
Hi, everybody. This is Starseed Showdown. It's Sunday, August 28th, 2022. And today we have Sama. Hi, how's it going, Sama?
Hey. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. Could you talk about your journey and how you got into this spiritual practice, the spiritual world that you're in with frequencies?
Sure. Yeah. It was about 20 years ago. A lot of things started to happen, and I was drawn to spiritual stuff. And I just went to India to try to find the truth. And I had a Kundalini experience during a retreat there, Vipassana course. And then I also got kidnapped in India and lost all my money and almost my life. And then I had a few other near-death experiences that really kickstarted my spiritual journey there when I was about 20 to 25. And then it took me about 15 years to figure out how to live both in the spiritual world and in the physical world. So it was a time of learning there. Yeah, and now I'm
So you mentioned before about when you very first started seeing frequencies and stuff in the spiritual world. How did that happen? Was it through a meditation practice or something?
Yeah, it was through meditation, but I also tried some psychedelics back then. So it was going in and out in the beginning. So coming down to more physical based, and then some experience, and then physical based and experience. And then it sort of got closer and closer together. So I was able to choose when I go into the spiritual world and when I go to the physical world.
Could you tell us more about the story you just mentioned where you had these near-death experiences? Did you say you'd been captured?
Yeah. So like I said, many strange things happen in my life then at this time. And it was like spirits sort of slapping me in my face and just like, wake up. You know, you're not this body, you're a soul. So one of those was that in India, I got kidnapped by a mafia there, that they held me captive for 3 days, and they changed my flight tickets and took all my travel checks, and I had to take out all my money, and then they drove me to the airport. So they took also my flight tickets and changed the dates to the nearest possible date, and then they drove me to the airport so that I wouldn't go to the police, and they forced me to go in and jump on the plane. So that's one of my awakening stories, because in that 3 days, that's what I would call one of my near-death experiences, because these 3 days, it was really like I didn't know if I would live or not. So I was crying and I was super scared, and all the problems I had as a teenager just seemed like completely ridiculous. So I was really pushed out of all these, this teenage programming, and I became an adult, you could say. It was like an initiation, even though it was not so spiritual at that time. It was just that reality has kicked my butt, and I had to change all my models for everything.
That's unbelievable. So was this all about money, or were they interrogating you, or were you a targeted person, or do you feel safe to share that? Because I mean, it doesn't seem common to keep someone for 3 days if you just want their wallet and their bank account, unless it's hard to get to that stuff for a few days in India. I'm just wondering, like, if there was more to this abduction than whatever was in your wallet.
Yeah, okay. It's a scam in that part of India that so they trick tourists by saying, if you smuggle diamonds to another country, we will pay you, and it will be, because if we send them legally, we have to pay a lot of taxes, they say. So like, oh, you just get a vacation to Dubai for a couple of days, and then you come back and we give you, $3,000 or something like that. So you save, or we save, and you have an interesting adventure. That's how they sell this scam. So I was just very naive, and I just came to India. I was just like, okay, I had only been there like 3 days. So I was like, okay, I'm just up for any adventure. And I thought like, oh, spirit is guiding me. That's the thing. I thought spirit was guiding me. So I thought spirit was bringing these people in my life to, to give me adventure and money and everything. But when I then agreed to this, they drove me and then locked me up instead. So it was really crazy how I could be so stupid, but I was young.
I love how you're laughing about it now, man, because that's quite the story. And we've interviewed other people, and I usually like to ask the question of, was this something that you arranged ahead of time? Obviously not in the 3D world, but do you think you would be the same person you are without this experience and maybe these other near-death experiences? Like, why is it that so many people seem to have these things built into their existences? Is this something that they arrange ahead of time?
Yeah, I don't know. If it was arranged, or if it's just like frequencies coming together for a purpose, it's like, if everything is determined before and just being played out, I think it's more like in the moment, it's like, so I have the programs in my energy body, and I'm just pushed into this world, and then my programs will attract whatever my programs are beeping. So I will attract the people, the events, the situations. It's just, the external world is just a mirror image of my programming. So this is more how I see it, rather than everything being planned in details, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And, it also suggests that you can change your external world really by changing these programs. Is that something that you do and have experienced? Have you seen the outside world change to reflect your inner world?
Yeah, this is my work. This is what I do for myself and for others. So it's really, the basic part is just to take all these crap programs that we got from traumas and to go back into them and to just move into that pain, move through that pain, and release the essence and restore that area to natural state. So that's programming, right? So that's the beginning of programming, because it's basically just deleting old bad programming, so they will stop happening. So the first part of programming is just to stop shit from happening. And then the second part is when you become clear enough, then you can start experimenting with manifestation, because you've been going through all these programs, so you know how powerful they are, So you have this program. This is like attracting a kidnapping event. That's a very strong program, right? And then you just understand the magnitude of these kind of programs. So then how could we use this in a positive sense? And that's when we start to craft our own programs. And whatever we hold in our energy body, same as the bad programs, have to manifest in the external world, right? So it's just a question if you want crap to manifest or if you want good things to manifest.
Yeah, when you put it like that, the choice is obvious. And so, maybe we can get into a little bit about how you recommend people actually write these programs and manifest things. I am curious if you can define the energy body for us a little bit. Just kind of tell us exactly all what that is. Is that something that exists in multiple dimensions? Like, is that here with me in the physical world right now? And you know, what is that exactly?
Yeah, so it's about 1 meter around us in all directions. And the goal of the spiritual path, as I understand it, is that we should sync our physical body with the energy body. So if we are off balance, if we are tired, exhausted, bored, things like this, then the energy body is not synced with us. It's like a few meters away, or so then the job is to bring the energy body closer and closer and closer, and then to be completely sync in center. So like without doing anything, the energy body is just synced. It's just there. When you wake up in the morning, it's just there. So then we need to get rid of all the crap programs for this to happen, right? Because when we have, as long as we have the crap programs, the energy body cannot really come in. Otherwise, it's different layers. So we have like emotional body with all the emotions around us, and then we have mental body with the thoughts, processes, and then every organ has their own frequency, and then we have the chakras. Yeah, I think you know.
I was curious if you had seen the movie The Matrix, or if you were familiar with the holographic / simulation theory of the universe, and like explaining kind of how like we can manifest things because we're part of sort of like, I don't know, like the game of life. There's like coding, there's like universal laws, and these frequencies that have you know, different number codes to them, like the frequency of love, or the frequency of the organs or the chakras, like you mentioned earlier. Those correspond to like number and music codes, and also colors. So if this is, I mean, that's kind of a computer type of terminology. I wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. Actually, I think this part of Matrix 1, when the walls turn to code, that's sort of how I sometimes explain the experience at this meditation retreat that I talked about. It felt like that because everything turned into frequencies, not codes directly, but frequencies. And everything is really frequencies. And when we don't have so strong inner power or inner strength, then we can't really do so much. So we're sort of a victim for all the frequencies. But it's when we go on the spiritual path and we do the work, we integrate our shadow, and then we can actually start interacting and changing the code. And then it becomes much more interesting. So I think the first part of my journey, it was just confusing, and it was just so much things happening that it was impossible to connect the dots. And then what happens, I went to teachers and they tried to teach me, but it's like teachers is good in a way because they teach you stuff, but also you lose your self-confidence because you become a student. And so much about figuring out the spiritual world is really to have confidence. So it's like every time I went to a teacher, I learned stuff, but I became a follower. So I sort of lost my abilities, Our abilities became more superficial. because I didn't believe in myself. So it was almost like, okay, I have to learn, but then I have to break free and I have to be myself and I have to explore by myself. It's like learning by doing, right? So you can get some models, you can get some beliefs from teachers, but at the end of the day, you need to explore that world. And it's a little bit like a baby, like chewing on everything and like smelling and like touching everything, you know. And that's the process to explore the spiritual world also. You have to pull something and then something happens and then you look at something. And it takes time to just learn how to navigate that world.
That's beautiful. As a follow-up question, what do you think the ultimate goal for life is with all these frequencies and experiences?
Yeah, I think it is. We are trying to have the human species to be able to embody their soul. And this is an ongoing project, right? And it's not been going so well. But the problem is that the programs, the bad programs, are transferred to next generation. So it's like every generation is even more bogged down by bad programming. The similar way as you get eye color, hair color, you know, body shape, you also get like money habits and addictions and stuff like this. You get all this crap in the DNA from the parents. So this is what they're like the spiritual experts, you know, the people like watching us, like, how can we fix this? It just gets worse and worse and worse with every generation. And we send down these people like Buddha and Jesus, but it's just the programming. It's just so thick and it just gets worse. So we need to have really a system where we can really clean out all these bad programming in a huge industrial way. Because the goal is that we can use this environment, the physical environment, but to still remember who we are. So that's what you can say, heaven on earth. And we haven't achieved that yet. It's just a failed project so far, but it looks like things are looking up. It looks quite positive on the horizon now, and I think we have invented several good ways to clear bad programming on a bigger scale, and that's what it takes.
When you're saying like an industrial scale, or we have ways on a grand scale to clean out this programming, what exactly are you talking about? Is this something that exists or something that could exist?
Yeah. So here we come into Bitcoin. So we are changing from centralized to decentralized. So what the spiritual guys, whoever runs this simulation, we figured out that the problem is the centralization. Because centralization is, you have a strong guy with insecurities, then trying to control all these weak people and keep them in fear. So it's obvious this will not work. So decentralization, and it's a form of a higher consciousness. And it's like when each person become self-sovereign, meaning that in your energy body, you're able to tap into the unlimited power of your own node or your own soul. So when we learn this, we become self-sustaining machines. So our energy body becomes a self-sustaining mechanism. So if you think of the centralized system, when people are weak, they always look outside of themselves for the life force. So they try to do a job, and they abuse people, and they are addicted outside of things. So when we come to this realization, we need to look inside. Then we tap into this black hole with unlimited power, unlimited life force. So we don't need to take anything from people outside of ourselves. And when this happens to an energy body, then it's no need to control people. So centralization is not it's not relevant anymore. So instead of controlling others, you empower others, because you want to help them to also be self-sustaining, to help them to find their self, or to activate their node, to stop following their beliefs and their masters and these things. So this is the chain reaction that is happening right now. So the amount of people becoming self-sustainable, self-sufficient, is just growing. And as this is growing, they help more and more everybody around them. They help everybody around them. And then they help everyone around them and everyone around them. So you see, when we come into this higher consciousness, when we come into this decentralized, then everybody starts supporting each other. And that's a huge difference from this centralized system we had with Illuminati and controlling the people and all of these things. So that's what I see, that this is what's happening right now, and it's on a grand scale, and it's just growing every day.
Yeah, well said. Thanks for that. I think that you nailed it on the head when you said that this decentralization structure is a leveling up of consciousness. It's like the next level. It's raising everybody's consciousness, and it's so much better than the pyramidal control structure, because instead of having one person with all the power, everybody has power. Everybody is sort of self-sovereign, so they're gaining their own power, and their consciousness is rising too. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. I want to rewind a little bit to what you said about like the big picture about like humanity evolving and consciousness raising. Like it's kind of about repairing our DNA and like repairing our belief systems, like you said, programming. And as that happens, you can let in more of, like what you said, is soul. I think that some people would also say they're embodying more of their higher self. So would you agree with that this is like the purpose of us being here and doing our shadow work and humanity evolving by each of us individually resolving these issues, repairing our DNA and letting more of the light in?
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe I can just mention with higher self, because in some traditions, some belief systems, they think of it as a ego and a higher self. But for me, it's this like, we always have higher selves. And when we let go of our old crap, we become that higher self. And then another even higher self appears above. So it's like, this is like upgrading process. So it's the person you are today, it's good and nice, and it's higher than the version you were last week. And then when you go into, then you see these challenges, like on these, you see the patterns, you have to let go of the patterns. And when you let go of those patterns, you become again your higher self. And then you're living on a higher level. Your external reality is even purer, even more helpful and positive. And that's how it goes. This you call like ascension process, right?
Yeah, well said. I think that's a really good description, because I've heard that there's so many layers of densities and dimensions that like we're trying to ascend to get back to God, or like a very high vibrational state. So it's like once we embody our higher self, maybe there's more to go. There's a whole nother journey after that, right?
Yeah, so I think it's this heaven on earth, as I said before. It's the process of embodying higher and higher and higher versions of ourselves. And this is like different levels of frequencies. It's like every level of frequency has a version of you. So it's like you upgrade to the next version that's on a higher frequency. So you have more abilities, you have more strength according to that. Every level of consciousness is sort of like a world, you know? So you sort of graduate into a new world where you're able to see perspectives you didn't have before. You're able to do things that you were not able to do before. And then you sort of learn that, you start to feel comfortable in that world, and then you're ready to graduate again. So you go up to another, even higher consciousness. But we're always staying in the body, and that's also part of it. The body needs to get used to those high frequencies. And so that's we go level by level. So we used to, I used to go level by level quite slowly. And nowadays, because of these things that I'm saying with decentralization, I experience that I have an upgrade every few days, because I let go of these old control patterns, and then I'm upgraded, graduated, and then I explore the new world.
So I think what you're saying is it's turtles all the way down and higher selves all the way up.
Yeah, it's just ourselves on different frequency levels, right? So it's like a piano, you know, and it's like, and it's you all the way. It's just different versions of you. So it's higher selves and it's lower selves. So we're experiencing higher and higher versions of ourselves.
I guess I just wondered what you thought would happen, like if we're in an experience and we're down here collecting data or having experiences. I would think that whatever we're discovering would be transmitted back up to the Oversoul program for research of some kind. And then I guess my question would be like, if we accepted an assignment to come to Earth to have these experiences in this dimension, to help out with this research that's like outside of the space-time, I was curious what you thought we're actually doing. But that might be too big of a question to get into.
It seems to me that what we are doing as a collective, like when I say us, I mean sort of God. And so we are the arms and legs of God. And together we are having like this project. And I said it's probably about heaven on earth. And it's like we try to invent heavier and heavier densities to be able to create more immersive experiences for ourselves. So this hologram, Earth, is the most dense environment that we created. So that's why it's this problem with the connection between the humans and the soul. So it's like, okay, we created the environment, we created the density, but the experience living there is shit. So how can we be able to experience, you know, like making love and just touching each other? This is not possible outside time and space, you know? So we, outside time and space, we're like, imagine if we could create a world where like we have physical bodies and I can touch you and you can touch me, and we can do all sorts of stuff. We can swim in the sea, and you know, it's like mind-blowing for them or for us to be able to do those kind of things. And the earth is so beautiful. So we just need this last piece, as I said, to be able to figure out how can we be on earth and still remember who we are. So So we are not so unconscious and we keep on hurting each other all the time. Then it's just like a waste project, and maybe we just have to just trash it and try something else.
Are you saying there's no lovemaking on the other side? Because that'd be unfortunate.
Well, you don't have physical bodies, right? So it's just like two frequencies mixing, or maybe you can imagine two bodies making out. You know, as I see it as we have the physical reality, all right? And then it's like the frequencies. And in between, it's this, what I call like imagination realms. It's like other types of densities. So it's not physical and it's not pure frequencies. It's in between. It's like the dreams, imaginations. So there, maybe we could have sex as a dream. But I think it's not even coming close to the physical experience.
Oh, well, that's maybe the one positive, right? Because most people just say everything is worse in every way down here. But maybe the lovemaking is, this is the spot for good sex, is planet Earth. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, that's good. Maybe that's why there's so many people, you know, who want to get in here. Well, you mentioned, you know, resetting these traumas at a industrial or planetary wide scale. Yeah, and so you're saying Bitcoin is part of this in your mind? Like, is this, you know, emitting a frequency that is actually cleaning and changing our DNA? Or is it just allowing us to be self-sovereign, and then the energy that each individual generates is what's doing the cleaning?
I think it goes both ways. And a lot what it's doing, it's resetting the value structures on Earth, what we value and how much we value things. And this is where we come into wealth and money, and what wealth is in the frequency world, right? We don't have money in the frequency world. There we have frequencies. So how can we, if we should have this heaven on earth, which I think Bitcoin is helping us to achieve, how we will then relate to each other? Because when we start to remember our true identities, or our souls, and we embody them. So we embody our souls, so we get rid of all the crap programming. We don't have any more fears, worries, guilt, or anything like that. So we just our souls in our physical bodies. And how do we then interact, and how do we buy things? So this should be more like we do outside time and space. And that interaction and how we value things. I could talk more about that, but maybe it's, you know, maybe it's not so interesting.
It's extremely interesting to me. I mean, I've thought about this topic a lot, right? Because at some point in this physical world, we'll transition out of a currency. And so, yeah, how do we exchange things? How do we incentivize anyone to do anything and not just sit there like a slug? So in your mind, what is the currency of the afterlife, or, you know, an evolved civilization?
Okay, so let's talk first about how we do it now in a centralized crap system. So it's like you can get money, you can get good things, but you need to sacrifice your soul to get it. You know, you need to just work for money, basically. So then you sacrifice your soul. Many people do this, right? Probably 90% of the people. So they push away their soul, and then they do things for money. So they can get luxury, things like this. And then on the other side, we have the spiritual people, maybe the 10% or 20%. They sacrifice wealth. They sacrifice quality, comfort, good food. So because they're like monks or like starving artists. So if you look at the human population, everyone who's like into their soul, they're usually poor. So it's like it's been this, either you sell your soul and you're rich and you have all these superficial pleasures, or you believe in your soul, you trust your soul, and then you don't have this stuff. So I see this as a duality thing. And when we're coming into this new consciousness with the decentralized way, these two opposites of selling your soul or selling your luxury will sort of merge and become one. So what happens then? Then happens that you don't have to sacrifice yourself for the luxury. So you are just in your soul, you're embodying your soul, you're doing what you like the starving artist, but the starving programs are not there anymore because they were based in confusion and fear, which we don't have in the decentralized world. Because in the decentralized world, like I said, we can become self-sufficient, self-sustaining, so we get our life force from within, so we can just give to others without emptying ourselves. So in this time, in the old way, you give something and you lose, right? You give something and you lose a part. But in the new system, everybody's just filled up from inside. So everybody just gives and gives and gives and gives and gives. Like, wow, I love that. Wow, I love that. And you don't have to even feel that you're losing anything, because we are in touch with our limitless source. And this just translates into the physical world. I know it's difficult to imagine right now, but it is programming being reflected in the external world. So whatever your resonance is, whatever your programs is, have to be translated into the physical world. So you work with the inside, you created you're limitless, you're full of power, and then that is what you will be. So this means that we're able to follow our soul, and we will earn money. Because lack, scarcity, it's just these fear-based programs from the fiat system, from the fiat world. They want to control you by, they tell you, we have inflation, you have to worry. But those are just fear programs. So when we enter this neutral, this decentralized state, it will be no lack. So, yeah, it will just be good. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to the extent that it can, and like I'm fully on board with that. And it's going to take a lot of reimagining and new concepts and stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If we are able to imagine this, and because what happens is that we are all growing up in the fiat system. So when we come out, we become adults, we are like 99% fear-based behaviors. So our behaviors, they are based in fear programs. So as we go on the spiritual path, we drop fears and drop fears and drop fears, and we go into higher versions of ourselves. So what our job is, like light workers or starseeds or indigo kids or whatever, is that we need to start to we need to invent, we need to imagine new ways of communicating that has no fear inside it. Like it doesn't exist really on this planet. So we need to sort of try to be like that, and because that's how could we have a world like an age of Aquarius if we would behave the same as we do now? So we need to invent new behaviors, like loving, unconditional love behaviors And this is what we're doing right here today. We're talking about this and we're imagining, like, how could it be? How could it be? Because that's part of the problem, right? The old programs, but what about the new programs? We need also the new programs.
Yeah, one thing I noticed when I got into Bitcoin was that I started to realize what's most important to me is my time. And some people say like buying Bitcoin is like storing your time. And I like that because I became more of a possession minimalist, you know, and then started to find the things that were more important to me. So I think Bitcoin, once you go down that financial rabbit hole and understand that inflation is a scam and taxes are a scam and all that, it opens the doors to other rabbit holes too, to find like what is most important to you.
Yeah, yeah. Part of the problem is attachment to wealth. And this is something I've been talking a little bit about with Bitcoiners, and it's difficult because Bitcoiners love their Bitcoin, and so they're very attached to them. So, and they just want more and more and more. But on frequency level, this is not the best behavior because it's attachment. So you're building up a tension between an external thing and to be able to come into the new consciousness, we cannot be attached to anything in the external world. We need to believe really that it's about the programming inside. So it's the programs inside you that determines how many Bitcoin you can have. So if you feel that your value is 3 Bitcoin, then 3 Bitcoin is what you will have. If you feel your value is, if your programming surmonts is like resonating at 15 Bitcoin, then 15 Bitcoin is what you will attract. And that part, that spiritual dimension to it is still not so normal in the Bitcoin community. So many think they need to hold on to the money. But when we feel we need to hold on to the money, we are sort of stuck in fear patterns, right? It's like, I need to hold on to this. This is the same thing with people who die. No, I don't want to die. And it's the fear. So it's like, do you understand what I'm trying to explain?
Yeah, that's well said. We don't need to be hanging on to everything. You know, I still feel like Bitcoin is a tool. So it means to an end, it's a better form of money and to spend and to save with. But in the end, there's a purpose for it. You know, we don't need to just hang on to Bitcoin forever. If somebody just buys Bitcoin their whole life and does nothing with it, it's kind of pointless. But we do have like one last inquiry to you. Just wondering what your opinion is on extraterrestrials. Like, do you believe they exist? Do you believe other kinds of entities exist? And like, to what extent do you think that these beings are out there?
Yeah. So the aliens, for me, mostly is in these imagination realms, like higher densities realms. Then I've seen films and heard reports about physical, like in our density. But I don't have personal experience with this, so it's just a belief system. Should I believe it? Should I not? I don't know. Because I'm like first principles kind of guy. I just want to experience it myself. So if it's just some rumors, I cannot just believe it. But it's very possible, of course. Very super, very, very, very possible.
Have you had any? Sam, have you had any kinds of experiences with spirits or demons or any other kind of non-human entities, non-corporeal stuff, or ghosts even?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Actually, as part of my, like one of those teachers I was talking about, we were working like full time for 5 years. So so I paid him like monthly. So, and our purpose with working there, so we were like 15 people paying this healer with amazing abilities. And the purpose was to clear all past lives, to clear all problems from all past lives. So during that period, I was just, it was new beings all the time, all the time, all the time. New groups, new types of beings. And because when someone found a life on another world, and then that sort of opened up, and then we have to discover this, like a community we then did. So we had like a chat group, and everyone was working, like we were working 3-4 hours per day. And then we still had day jobs, but this was our hobby. We were just sorting out all past lives. So yeah, demons for sure. Angels, archangels, aliens of many, many different kinds. It was, but this is all, what I'm talking about, this is all in the imagination realms, right? So I never saw any physical alien. Mm. And I can say what we found with that research. So that research project, yeah, so I paid him for 5 years, and then for another 5 years, I was a colleague and friend. And basically the mission was to just figure out everything, how to figure out all the programmings. But we just looked in past lives from the soul. So we connected to the soul and checked all the past lives and sorted out all the situations. And then in the end, it's like, oh, we expected to have a great life here because we sorted out all of this stuff. And that's where it was like, people got a little bit grumpy and like, where are the results? We've been working here for so long. And for me also, I sort of gave up and I said, this is not working. And I went away and I went into the physical world for a while because it felt for me like I tried everything. But then the big key opened up, and it was that we were too focused on the soul. And that's when it opened up with the DNA and the bloodlines. So even if the soul is completely free flowing, it comes into this body, which has all this DNA and gene crap. And this is what I'm talking about with all these problems just getting transferred from generation to generation to generation. So then I started working 5 years ago on clearing my bloodline. So father side, mother side, generation back, generation back, generation back. Because it's all in my cells. I can't run away from this. It's like if I have an issue, even if it comes from my great-great-great-grandmother, it's still my problem. So I have to go there and I have to look at it. It's my shadow. So I have to see it until it becomes back to a natural state, and then the problem disappears. So again, it's just inner programming. And now I'm just talking about the deeper dimensions of the programming. So you have the soul and the past lives, and you have the bloodlines and generations. And then you can see how much crap it is. But the good news is that it's working. It's going in the right direction, and everybody have to do this. And you know, when I fix generations back, it also helps other children of those people and so on. So it's like we are clearing up the whole humanity, the whole history of humanity. We cannot leave it behind. We need to face it.
That's really interesting. Is there a special practice or meditation or visualization that you do to clear the bloodline?
No, it's just continuous. Like if it's like my childhood stuff, or if it's from a generation, it doesn't matter. It's the same. Everything is just in me. So it's just it's problems in my external reality. I find a program for it. I resolve the program, and the problem disappears in my physical reality. That's the process. So where it comes from, which life or which ancestor, or from my childhood, it doesn't matter. It's just program by program, cleaning up, making space for the soul to come in.
I like that a lot. And so we might be kind of winding down the show here. I was wondering if, well, I guess two things. If you have like a message for humanity, because you sort of talked about people are becoming more self-sovereign and this energy is changing and things are looking up. The DNA is being restored and all that stuff. And then two, if you've thought about how to create new programs, like, you know, Bitcoin might be the new program for money that's decentralized. And you were talking about a new language for unconditional love. Have you thought about what these things could actually look like? Do you have any inklings? You know, do you have a white paper for unconditional love communication? Anything you could share with us?
Yeah. The key is to quiet the mind. So when we step into the energy body, the mind is just a small machine around the head area. And the mind is just producing a verbal string of concepts all the time. So what we hear in our mind is just a consequence of what our focus is. And also when I work on spirit level, I don't care about the mind. The mind is not involved in that. I just have it a little bit on as for memory. So the mind is sort of there just looking and sort of taking notes. But the mind is not involved. Like if I communicate with other souls and so on, it's not the mind. It's not the mind. So the humanity is really caught up in the mind. And that's where all the problem comes from. Because the mind makes models, and then people then believe the models, and then they talk to their models rather than the person. So people are just going around projecting their past experiences onto each other all the time. So this just creates more and more and more and more problem. So to quiet the mind and come into the energy body. And so like when we speak, we don't need a mind to speak. The mind is sort of there like saying, you can say this, you can say that, calculating. All that calculation is just past calculations of risks for previous experiences that doesn't matter anything. So we learn to do satsang, truth talk, like they say in India. They practice this. So they just sit and talk without the mind interfering. So I'm not saying this from my mind. I can see the mind is a little bit going there. But this is my heart, or what you say, my spirit, my soul is saying this. It's not coming from my mind. So this is what we should practice. Quiet the mind and then start talking straight from your soul without filtering things from your mind.
Wow, that was amazing. I really appreciate your input and for joining us today. So thanks a lot, and hope to have you on again soon to go down these rabbit holes again.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It was really fun. It's really interesting to talk to you guys. So I'm happy to come again.
Sam, do you want to tell people about your podcast and where to find that? Because you and I had a show on there, and it was really enjoyable to talk about Bitcoin consciousness. So can you just tell people about that, where to find it?
Yes, I have a podcast called Bitcoin Consciousness. And then I have a blog where I write articles. And I'm organizing a men's group for Bitcoiners who wants to do the reprogramming, who realize that it's about the programs. It's not about what you do in the outside world. So a men's group there, starting 10th of September. So still some places left there. And then I also do some group meditations. I call them momentum meditations. And it's about this. It's a group coming in and embodying the energy body. So syncing the energy body with the physical body. And so we can all feel each other's presence, even though it's online. And so it's like we meet online, and then we go in to the spiritual world, and we meet in the spiritual world, and we hang out in the spiritual world, and we actually help each other to deal with some. So if someone has a difficult program that, or an entity, and like a nasty entity, then I can pick up, I see this. So then I say, okay, everybody focus now on the behind your back or something like this, or wherever it is. And then the amazing thing is that it's really like, because everybody's awareness is light. So everybody's awareness is then turned to this. And it just gives this person so much strength. So he's able to look at, face this troublemaker, and to realize that he should not be in that space. So it's all about clearing the space. Like in our energy body, our space, should only be our essence, our node. Everything else we push out. All the programs, patterns from other people, just push them out. Oh, sir, I get carried away. Yeah, but that's what I do.
Okay. Well, thanks, Sama, once again. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.